All right, it's 6:30. Okay, so I'm going to call to order the Board of Aldermen regular meeting for Thursday, July 11th. The first order of business is the invocation, which will be given tonight by Alderman Benson.
Please stand. We gather to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens. Join me in a moment of silence for remembering our military, our police and fire members who serve us for safety, and others that you would like to think about in your prayers. Thank you.
All right, while standing, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just want to announce that Alderman Jeremy Grove is absent from this meeting room tonight, but he is joining us remotely. So, Alderman Grove, are you there? Yes, he is.
I am here.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, so first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion in regard to tonight's agenda?
I'd like to
recognize the town manager.
I would like to recommend that we remove item, let me get down here, item B off of the continuing business, the fund balance fiscal policy, and remove it until we have our audited financials.
Okay, so we have one motion.
Second.
Okay, second. Are there any other motions? Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the changes recommended by the town manager.
I'll make the motion that we approve the agenda as presented with the change to remove item B from continuing business per the recommendation of the town manager.
Before you vote on that, may I add something to the agenda after closed session, a potential item?
You want to add an item in the closed session?
For after the closed session.
After the closed session.
We just entitle that potential easements.
All right, so we will have item 16A. Okay, added to the agenda for the recommendation of the attorney. Okay, relating to an easement. Okay.
Potential easements per.
Potential easement. Okay.
I modify my motion to reflect that.
Second.
Okay. All right. We have several motions and a final motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. The next order of business is on the topic of public presentations and hearings. For those of the public who are not aware, Alderman Grove, who joined this board a year ago, okay, in his capacity, in his working capacity, has been promoted and will be moving out of town, okay? So I have, and on the agenda for the next month, we will consider other candidates to replace Alderman Grove and vote, and the board will vote on that. But in the meantime, we want to recognize and honor the public service of Alderman Grove. So I have a resolution that I'd like to read in recognizing Alderman Grove. Whereas Jeremy Grove has been an active member of the community and worked tireless to improve the quality of life for his fellow residents. And whereas a vacancy on the Board of Aldermen led to his appointment, which reflected his commitment to North Topsail Beach. And whereas Jeremy Grove dutifully served, not for the first time, the town of North Topsail Beach during his time as an elected official. And whereas Jeremy Grove is honored, respected, and held in the highest esteem for his vision and concern for the betterment of North Topsail Beach and its citizens. And therefore, be it resolved that the North Topsail Beach Board of Aldermen, on behalf of a grateful community, does hereby commend Jeremy Grove for his many contributions and untiring efforts in his official capacity as Alderman, adopted this day on the 11th day of July, 2019. So will you all join me in applauding Alderman Grove? And wish him well for the future. Jeremy, we love you and we'll miss you. Okay, so, and congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, moving on, we'll have the manager's report. So, Town Manager Chadwick, please.
Or do you have copies of the, two copies of the manager's report? I'll put them, I've got the, I got it. It's underneath that one, sorry. No.
Looked at it this week, so it will be posted on our website as well. So Phase 5, the Matthew project. This project was previously approved by FEMA for damages sustained by Hurricane Matthew. It is now out for bid. Chris Gibson, I talked to him yesterday, said there's been a lot of interest in this project. And he has had calls from South Carolina all the way to Massachusetts. And the bids will be returned on July 26th. And he will be at our next board meeting on August the 1st to make a recommendation to award the contract and discuss the project. And next week, he and I will be discussing the project as well as analyzing project and source sites. The source sites.
Before you go on, I would like to have the description of the project published either to our website or to our Facebook page.
Okay.
Okay, so people understand exactly what's involved in Phase 5 Matthew Pettit project. Thank you.
All right.
And the proposed schedule for doing this project.
Okay. For the Florence damage, several months before we know whether or not our project will be included in this disaster relief funding. The Corps of Engineers dredging ICW of New River Inlet Crossing and channel to Jacksonville. At the Shallow Draft Inlet Maintenance meeting, we learned that the contract bids for a Corps project $1.2 million for our debris removal as well. And that is in the bank. The Shoreline Protection Working Group, again, our meetings have entailed conversations with our coastal engineer dealing with Hurricane Florence, and we've also completed the latest newsletter concerning shoreline protection. We've been discussing that, and it'll be posted on the town's website and on Facebook. The Ocean City Jazz Festival, as you know, the Ocean City Jazz Festival was held last weekend and celebrated its 10th anniversary, and it was a great success from what I saw being there and what I've heard from others. Our police, fire, and public works departments did great jobs assisting during the event, and it did seem to work seamlessly. I mean, they really did a good job. So, building codes insurance audit. Just received the insurance underwriting. Our evaluation showed a better score and may allow a reduction in premiums. This shows the commitment to working towards compliance and placing our community in the upper areas of professionalism throughout the building code industry. The improved score also meets one requirement for improving the town's CRS rating. Correct, Deb?
That's correct.
And I do want to recognize Jimmy Kennedy and Kate Winsler for being instrumental in the process. And then lead for NC, At the UNC School of Government Fellows Program, again, we have been selected to participate in the inaugural program of the Lead for North Carolina Fellows Program at the UNC School of Government. For the next 2 years, we will have a recent graduate from UNC. We have prepared her work plan for the next 2 years. Town Clerk Oxley and I have talked with her, and I will be meeting with her at a training next week. And we feel her skill set will be an excellent fit. Since this is the inaugural program, Mayor Tooman and I will be going to Raleigh to meet with our legislative delegation and the governor for a kickoff at the end of the month. So she will officially begin. We'll be going up there the 30th of July.
Property that is determined to be a rental unit that is not in compliance with the regulations will be flagged as a discovery. And so once that discovery is determined, we're gonna send out a certified letter to that homeowner. No more friendly mail, we're gonna send it certified. And then it's gonna have all the documentation in there, the levy and so forth, and say that we're requiring them to pay their back occupancy taxes. So, I think it's good.
That's fine. I just, again, draw everybody's attention to the second last page of the packet that you handed out. That the resolution of levying an occupancy tax on rental accommodations within North Topsail Beach was adopted on the 6th day of December 2001, okay? And it references the general statute and the session laws giving the town of North Topsail Beach the authority to collect that tax. And it's levied again to General Statute 105.-164.4. And it authorizes the finance officer to design, print, and furnish to all appropriate businesses, okay, the necessary forms for collecting that taxes. And it does give him by state statute the authority, okay, for anybody who fails to file or return the taxes to in fact penalize them. So when you're developing your ordinance, okay, for rental property occupancy tax, it seems to me that the resolution adopted way back in 2001, my wife might have been on the board at that time, okay, it seems to me that all of the appropriate criteria and information is incorporated in the original resolution.
I think that the resolution provides the what, and what they're looking for from the attorney is the how. Fair statement?
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's in there, but it doesn't tell you how to do it.
Right.
And it doesn't lay out the timelines and everything else, and I think what they're looking for is the mechanics of enforcement of this document.
Yes.
Okay? I just wanna say a couple things if I can. This is on the agenda because I asked for it. And I asked for it from what happened at the hearing for the budget. I thought the lady who got up and asked the questions about occupancy taxes and what are you doing to collect them before you come back and try to stick your hand further into my wallet. I asked her a really good question, and she posed it in a really good way. And I was just a little concerned about the honor system. In the context of it was presented tonight, I get where you're going with it, because it is, once you go and discover someone, well, yeah, my brother's been renting it for the last 54 weeks. I get you can't do anything about that, but we have had way more, and I know Kim for the longest time, it was almost a primary duty to set up that database and surf the web and find Airbnb and find vacation rental by owner and find the ones that people are doing it on Lejeune Yard sales and Craigslist and all. It doesn't have to be a formal thing, and they're the ones that are slipping through the.
But after a period of that, people will start, you'll be surprised how many people come out of the woodworks because they don't want their bank account to be garnished. So that's the type of teeth y'all are talking about, we're talking about, and we'll do the best we can. I'm hoping that new School of Government publication has some ideas on how to discover people who aren't even reporting at all. It's a standard 5% fee. If you don't report it up to a 25, if you don't pay it 5% of what you owe, and you can charge up to 25% for late reporting or non-reporting. And if it's the board's pleasure, we'll use the most aggressive percentage on the cost as we can. So.
All right, listen, we have the next regular board meeting is on the 1st of August. Okay, I would hope, at that time, we will have some firm dates as to when the ordinance is forthcoming.
I think we can have something prepared for you to look at August 1st.
Good.
All right, great. Okay. Richard?
I would ask, what is the state of the art in other communities in this area?
Well, particularly with everything being online like that and the Airbnbs, you can duck out of it, and there was a whole issue to where they would even cooperate in telling local municipalities. That's gotten somewhat better, statewide, I think. Yeah, I see Betsy, I see you shaking your head, you deal with these people.
Yeah, it's been a fight to get any
Right.
information from like Airbnb or VRBO.
They cut
It's
a-
not like the real estate agencies who send us a detailed list saying this property earned this amount of money.
Right.
They just send us a check, so we have no idea who it's for.
And Professor McLaughlin at the School of Government is kind of taking the spearhead in this movement, and there have been some, almost statewide negotiations with the Airbnb type people. What's the other one,
VRBO,
Yeah.
vacation rental.
So it's getting better, it's not perfect, but I'm looking forward, and Professor McLaughlin authored this book I'm referring to, looking forward to getting that because he's a bright guy, and this is kind of one of his specialties now. So, we'll bring this back, Mayor, August 1st.
Okay.
And, but the first draft, I'm gonna tell you, is going to avail the town of the most aggressive, options available under the law. And then you guys can pare it back or keep it there, whatever you wanna do. But it will get dicey at first, just based on my experience.
We'll just give them your number, Brian.
My office, not my cell number.
Question for the attorney. Other towns that you represent, other municipalities, have they gone through this, and what's been the,
The most aggressive I've seen is garnishing bank accounts. Our percentages are not terrible of looking at this. But like I said, what I have found though is people raise, you know what, at first, and we remind them politely, this is the law, it's your obligation, the town's just doing what everyone else is doing. 87%, or what are the numbers, Betsy?
So 85% right now as it stands for fiscal year 18-19.
So 85% of the people are doing what they should do, at least something towards what they should do. And then Tom, to answer your question, if people will start, what I always do, I don't like accusing people. When we discover it, and in the letter that we did, Kim, it says, hey, our record investigation reveals you may be renting your property, you may not be aware, but da-da-da-da-da-da. And I have found that people are a lot less defensive then, say, oh, we didn't know, what do we need to do? Versus, we caught you doing A, B, and C, then they're threatening lawsuits and all that. But after you get some aggressive collection measures out there, you'll see a rise in collection rate if people aren't cooperating.
Okay.
And you know, if the realtors, the local realtors, you know, you have to have a good relationship with them, make sure it's a free flow. Worst case scenario, we can try to get the court to issue some subpoenas to get documents, but they don't have any jurisdiction over Airbnb. We'd have to get a federal subpoena for that.
All right, no further questions, we'll move on.
Thank you, Betsy.
Again, on continuing business, Revetment Committee update. Michael, do you have anything further?
The Government Committee met, Tuesday morning, and, just to, remind the board, we updated the board at the, June meeting that we were considering substituting, rental engineers for Gary Green engineers. And, the reason being was the, non-response really of Gary Green engineers. So tonight, what I'd like to do is sort of present a timeline of what we've tried to do to get Gary Green engineers to give us an engineering plan to, restore the revetment, and then make a motion to, ask for, a substitution of, engineering firms. So first, I've already, distributed, Laura did, the, timeline for working with Gary Green. Recall it's been almost a year since the board approved Gary Green Engineers for, restoration of the revetment. We've had meetings with him. I'm not gonna go through every date and what happened on each of the dates. You can read that for yourself, but I think we've done a fairly good job of documenting the process. And pretty much since January 11, the process has pretty much, broken down with what he said he would do and what he's actually done. We've had to coax his professional fee estimate out of him with repeated emails and repeated phone calls. And, as we sort of left it, May 1st, I believe, and we wanted Mr. Green to have a contract to the revetment committee that would encompass the professional fees that he finally provided. And, it's now July 9th, and we have no contract, and we've not really heard anything from him, although we have made several attempts to, contact him following the request that he provide an agreement for professional services. So where we are with Mr. Green is we have no contract. The committee is obviously pretty frustrated because this process should not have taken this long. Granted, the hurricane came along and slowed down the process. So at our meeting Tuesday morning, we decided that we should have, let me back up. The last board meeting, I said that we were polling the committee, and we were going to determine if Arundel Engineers was still interested in the project. So as it has turned out subsequently, yes, Arundel Engineers is still interested in doing the project. They were the second bidder. Engineering company bid on the RFQ. Okay, so in addition to saying Arundel Engineering saying that they were interested in the project at this stage, they also sent us a agreement for professional services, something we've been trying to get out of Gary Green for almost a year. All right, so I want to make a motion that the board approve the substitution of Arundel Engineers for Gary Green Engineers. That is the motion. Based on the information that I was just given.
So I guess my concern is that, like you just said, it's been almost a year since we had these conversations and talked about the scope and talked about the different bids, and qualifications of the different contractors. And if the committee has in their hands right now an agreement for professional services for Arundel, I feel like I would like to read that before I'm saying I'm good with a switch. And I don't know, Brian, if we're allowed to do that.
Well, ultimately, the contract, the way it's supposed to work is the committee should propose the preferred engineer, which they've already done. Now that engineer, according to Alderman Benson and the committee's timeline, is not being responsible.
I understand, and I agree with that.
So now the committee would propose as their preferred engineer, Arundel. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
That's how I said it.
I butcher it every time. It's like I got Tourette's or something. And then once the engineer is selected, then a negotiation as to the contract terms occurs because the contracting party is the town.
But I feel like if the contractors backed out, disappeared, ghosted the town, and now we've called number 2, and he's the only one in town, it might only be me, but he's really not having to fight hard or negotiate terms with us. Now I get we still have a set.
This board has to approve the contract, and if you allow substitution, all you're doing is authorizing negotiations to see if we can come up with an agreeable contract.
Okay, so that's
And
okay. So we're
I
not.
So the contract comes later.
I attended the revetment committee meeting via telephone to facilitate. And thank you, Alderman Benson, for bringing the timeline. I'm assuming that's a consensus of the committee members. and made it quite clear, that there would be a not to exceed amount provision in the contract, and already pointed out 2 provisions of the contract
Okay.
that I could not recommend the board accept.
Okay.
And they know that, the committee members know that. I'm assuming it's been conveyed over to Mr. Foreman. I'm not gonna try to say the company's name again.
Rendell.
So the next thing, Alderman Durham, or Mayor Pro Tem Durham, would be if the board allows the substitution, we would attempt to negotiate a contract.
Okay.
And if we don't negotiate terms acceptable to the
So in your-
board, then there is no contract.
In your mind, we're still at request for qualification. That's
Well-
where we're back at that again.
We will allow the substitution subject to, and this is how I want the motion to be worded ultimately, allowing the substitution with the understanding that, a contract is to be negotiated, and if mutually agreed upon terms can't be reached, then they'll have to find another engineer.
And I have one other question, and you may tell me that we need to do this later, but maybe we need to do it later, but if the contract is with the town, up to a set amount of money, some of the funds are already held in escrow, for
Right.
lack of a better word, from the town. The rest of the money was the litigants' money. Is their attorney still holding that money?
You'd have to ask the committee that, I don't know, but all of that will be worked out in the contract.
It will be in the
document. Yes,
contract.
But I believe to answer your question, way back when, that money did go into a
An escrow
separate
or
bank
something.
account.
That's what I recall that, but I don't know the details, and I don't wanna speak to.
But we have the ability to have language to such in the contract.
Yeah. If we don't reach mutually agreed upon terms, there will be no contract. And the board is the contracting party. You have to exercise your duty to, in good faith, to try to reach mutually agreed upon terms. But provided we're acting in good faith, which we will, if we can't reach an agreement, then either nothing happens or they go out and get a third engineer.
Okay, thank you.
Just remind me, if you all will, Green was selected, okay? He was notified that he was selected and was asked to submit a proposal. Something?
He
It's all right.
submitted a request for qualifications proposal back in June.
Right.
Remember, we had to have 2 engineering
June of
proposals
last year?
2018,
last year.
that's correct.
And finally came through in June after he said he was interested in January. So that's just an example of the, for lack of a better word, procrastination with his, engineering firm.
So, I presume, that there was some judgment involved in selecting Green over Rendell at that time.
Yes.
And again, some amount of time has passed. Should we go out and see if there are other engineers, okay, who might be interested now that did not respond earlier before we kind of go and select the also ran, if I may use those
It's,
words.
if you go and look at the settlement, it's up to the revetment committee to bring that to the town.
And we did look at a list of about 5 or 6 engineering firms that we contacted to determine their interest. So I don't see.
Back then.
Back a year ago, so I
Yeah.
don't see that would really change now for any particular reason. Either they were
And-
interested or they.
And it's the
And
revetment
I stand
committee's
corrected, it's not the
opinion.
revetment committee, it says in the settlement agreement, it says plaintiffs
Plaintiffs.
shall submit names of 2 or more engineers to the town.
Right.
And they
Okay.
did originally.
And they did submit two engineers to the town. I get where you're going, I mean, you go back and ask them, but,
But they haven't, at today's date, there are no 2,
there were 2, there were 2.
But as of today, there's only 1.
Correct.
And
Well, I
I
wouldn't
understand
put
where
it
you're
like
going, because
that.
that's what I understand what Tom is saying with the agreement. I understand it's the litigants that get to determine and bring it forward to us. I just always feel uneasy when there's only one like, he doesn't have to win it. The other guy just didn't show up to play the game. He didn't have to win,
It's a
so.
forfeit. It's a forfeit.
Yeah.
There
And
were
I-
two at the
Well,
time we made the decision.
No, I
And
understand.
we're just
So-
moving
I-
to the second one.
Well, my question would be for the town attorney about that is, you know,
In the spirit of the.
you know what it says, you
settlement,
know, write it,
Yeah,
okay?
that's a.
Where are we?
That's a close,
Yeah.
that'd be me giving you legal advice, and I'd prefer not to do that in open session.
All right.
If you want to, if there's has the motion been seconded?
The motion hasn't been
Well,
made.
that's actually what I had just asked. It's on here as a revetment committee update. So are we, the way it's on the agenda, are we able to make a motion and vote on it?
I think we could suspend the rules, I mean, let me see the agenda.
Well, I intended for it to say take action.
And that's okay. I'm just asking if we need to make a change or for the notes.
The safest thing to do would be to suspend the rules to add a potential for taking action on that item.
Well, in order to suspend the rules, you'd have to have unanimous agreement to suspend the rules.
I think it's unanimous, I think it's.
4/5.
I guess where I'm struggling is I feel like I haven't had a chance to review anything or refresh my memory about this engineer, but I understand from the settlement agreement, it's really not about me refreshing my memory or selecting this person.
Well, we were required, the committee, or the plaintiffs were required to present two or more, which they did. We went with their first choice. As I understand it now, the first choice is non-responsive, so the committee has now requested we go with their second choice. I don't think it was contemplated at the beginning, that we would be in this predicament. And I will have to, in closed session, assess that and give you some advice going forward from there. But you're not precluded from, unless, you know, the agenda probably needs to be amended, precluded from going with the proposal of the revetment committee now as substitute.
Well, I think that's the issue at hand for the mayor pro tem and the mayor, actually, is that we're gonna just substitute where the question would be whether or not we should go back out and cast the net again. Correct?
Let me ask you, John, how do I know, in fact, that the revetment committee, the plaintiffs, have requested that Arundel now be selected?
Because Alderman
The
Benson
vote
just
was,
told us.
7-1.
Okay, because you're representing the plaintiffs in this.
I'm reporting for the committee, that's all.
I heard the vote, I mean, I wasn't there to see the hands go in the air, but I heard the motion.
I was gone by then. I attended the meeting but left at 11 o'clock.
All the plaintiffs voted to substitute.
Is that your recollection?
Yeah, they said.
And I understand their frustration in wanting to do that. I think everybody does.
I really feel if
All right.
we don't move forward with this, we're gonna be spinning our wheels for several more months. At least gotta evaluate what Arundel proposes to do. He was the second, proposal we received. The board chose Green over Arundel. Green hasn't come through. Let's
The
see
board,
what
okay.
Arundel can do.
So the minutes
Well,
are accurate.
let me rule that, in fact, the revetment
Yeah.
committee.
Hold on, I want the minutes to be accurate. The board approved the committee's, or the plaintiff's, number one recommendation of the two, which was Green. I just want the minutes to reflect that. The board didn't select. The board approved the number one proposed engineer from the plaintiffs.
All right. Let me rule that, in fact, the agenda item as written, revetment committee update includes the possible taking of action. So, Mr. Alderman Benson's motion is in order.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a second to his motion? If there's no second to this motion, then the motion fails. All right, the motion fails. Let's move on. New business.
I think what we need to do is go into closed session and discuss this and get legal advice from our attorney on this issue in closed session and put it back on the agenda if closed session, just, that's what comes out of the closed session, put it back on for August.
Well, all right, we can discuss that in closed session, and then we can make motion on the rules when we come out. All right, moving on. Request for an easement under the new business. Planning director?
Are you gonna do that? The easement?
I thought you were, but it's okay.
Sorry.
Hey, Deb, is Facebook Live still up? 'Cause I
Yes.
was- Okay, saying it went down, but you got it back up?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, thank you.
No, I don't have any of it.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
This looks like an easy easement one. You want me to do it for you?
I don't recall just to get us going in a minute, if somebody can help fill it in.
What and why?
The owner across has property
Goldsboro
across Goldsboro Lane. They own that entire tract to include the ocean side.
Yep.
There's of course, the Goldsboro right of way transects that property. He wants to put a crossover there. There are a couple of crossovers that have already been there. We permitted a repair, but this is a new one, so we're requesting that he go through and obtain an easement from the town, for an easement.
So Deb, I thought this was replacing the one that got destroyed in
Not
the
his.
hurricane.
Yeah, not his. This is a new
Oh,
one.
he mentioned in his comment that the previous owner who had it going across didn't want to spend the money to replace it, so they now have no access.
And then there's one that's right beside his property, that runs within a 5-foot easement parallel to his property. And that's recorded on a, plat of survey. That easement's already recorded. And it exists,
But Jason, from reading what you had, Jason Dale didn't have any issues with them needing a CAMA permit as long as they follow the appropriate measures to
That's
install
correct.
the walkway.
that's correct.
And they're installing it on their property, we just need to give them an easement because of the right of way for the road.
That's correct.
Okay, good to vote.
And Thomas Best doesn't have any issues with it either.
Is that going to represent somewhat of a neighborhood crossover, or what?
I had spoken to several of the property owners, in that area and encouraged them and invited them to come up with, for them to all chip in and have one crossover. I don't believe that was a very popular idea. For the ones that can have their own private crossover, that's what they're choosing to do.
Well, some of those homes, I don't believe it's just that one, some of those other homes also own an oceanfront tract there too.
Some do, and the ones that are in the back have an easement.
So you're just talking about the right of way along the Goldsboro?
Yes, sir.
As it is right now, it would appear that people are not even using a crossover there.
No, they
They're
have.
just going across the dune.
I don't, not that I noticed.
There's one that we signed off on repairs. I don't think that there's any that are functional at this point. We have, issued permits for repair. Whether or not the repair has been completed yet, I do not know.
I think it has.
Will the stairs be in the town's right of way, the road right of way?
Yes. That's why they need an easement. That's why they
Do
need
you
an
know
easement.
how much they will extend in the town's right of way?
So our request
There seems to be, I think there would need to be, trash trucks use Goldsboro Lane, there needs to be some coordination so that it doesn't interfere with.
It's gonna be off the roadway, substantially not to interfere with traffic.
But I think we're overthinking it, because if you look at what Deb sent out, and what Jason said would be allowed, they clearly have to build it within certain specifications. And it has to meet all local ordinances and building code standards and be so far up from the dune and
That's
not
right.
impact it and all of those things, so I don't see any reason not to grant it.
I had no objections, and, Thomas Best had no objections.
And it doesn't sound like Jason did either.
And Division of Coastal Management did not.
So Joanne, make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve the easement as requested on Goldsboro Lane for the beach crossover.
Could you add subject to final approval by the town attorney? Could you add subject to
A
final?
subject to final approval by town attorney, certainly.
I'll second that. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on. We have a proposal from ATM, and you're gonna present the proposal, town manager?
Yes, sir. Fran and ATM have been working, on our post-Florence, damages, beach damages. And, the work group had told him we've been talking a couple of months ago that we would like to go ahead and get something on paper to do a bid process so we could get it, out. And ahead of other, other processes throughout the whole beach area. And we spoke with him a couple of weeks ago after he brought it, or after he sent it out. And it's the proposal to design and develop the bid package for Hurricane Florence damages. It does include Category G, which is the engineered beach, and Category B, which is the dune restoration of the natural beach area. And ATM has done the studies and data analysis for these damages already, and so this is going to be utilized. This is the next part of it. The way it's going to be bid out, there are going to be two different bid packages to be developed and issued based on the two placement methods. One is the engineered beach placement along Phase 5 and part of Phase 4, and then also the stockpiling of dredge material and then trucking the dredge material along Phases 1 through 4. And no, you're good. And it's based on Fran's work with FEMA's Bob Lassen on Hurricane Florence, excuse me. And it is going to be FEMA reimbursable as well. Discussing that with FEMA.
So when you say FEMA reimbursable, you're talking about the whole entire project?
Yes, and this will be a part of the entire project of the bid package.
So my question is, Brent, when you get to the estimates at the end where it talks about the different, the reviews and getting the application ready for submittal, the 37 and 28, is that something that's underneath the FEMA limit? Could that be its own project so we don't have to spend that money first and FEMA would just pay for it?
That is a good question.
Where's Betsy?
And of course, Betsy's.
All right, it's just something to
that
consider.
actually, it is,
I'm just wondering if we could chunk it into a couple, because I can't remember off the top of my head what their dollar limit is, where they'll pay for it if we create a PO.
Yes.
But it would be nice to not have to pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be something that we would check on that.
It's a question for ATM as to whether or not his professional fees are recoverable under FEMA.
Well, he said they're recoverable, but I'm just saying I don't wanna wait to get reimbursed. If FEMA will, I can't remember if it was like 75,000 or 50,000, if you just create a PO, then they'll write you a check and you don't have to put the money out first. So I was just wondering if there's a way to chunk it up that way.
I don't know that is because they're looking at it as a whole.
A whole project. It may be
package.
no.
But Hey.
If we can break it up into smaller pieces
Yeah.
and one of them gets some check
And you
written
two,
without.
y'all have been a part of those
Yeah,
conversations.
Right.
no, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
It needs to be asked.
But I was absolutely, and I'll let you continue to go through, but I was absolutely thrilled, and I wanna make sure everybody understands and takes this away in case they missed your manager's report at the beginning of the meeting, that this plan that you're going through with us right now nourishes the entire beach phase 1 through phase 5.
No.
And
In 2 categories, right?
Well,
No.
it provides dune restoration
dune
only
restoration
in some
only
places.
in that.
Okay,
That's
But
dune
correct.
some-
restoration
but-
in some and beach
But
nourishment.
I think it would be a fair statement to say that there's gonna be sand placed
Mhm.
somewhere
Everywhere.
along the entire length of town at some point or another.
Okay.
You know, either on the dune or on the beach
Phase
itself or both.
5 will be restored to its pre-storm condition, okay? And it's estimated somewhere around 600,000 yards, okay? Okay, and then phases 1 through 4 will have their dunes repaired to the extent of around 150,000 cubic yards of sand.
Correct.
Okay, when I read the report, that the sand will be ocean dredged,
Yep.
okay?
Mhm.
What he doesn't cover in this report is the concerns that we have with our original phase 5
Rocks.
project in terms of rock mitigation,
Yep.
okay? And the recommendation, and the thing that we learned from phase 5 is that, if you're going to ocean dredge in the future, you do it with a hopper dredge, not the other kind of dredge that grinds up, a cutter dredge,
Yeah.
that could grind up the rock surface, okay?
So,
And the other thing he doesn't cover in this report, so those are 2 conditions I think that he needs to be informed of, okay? Rock mitigation and hopper dredge, okay? And what he doesn't cover here in this report is the timing.
can I?
Right, the
Yes, sir.
project timing.
Provide-
Go ahead, Michael.
So part of the discussion that we had during this conference call,
Yeah.
we spent a lot of time talking about rocks.
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Brent. And he assured us that there are areas in that borrow site where there are a lot lower probability of finding rocks. Plus, recognize your concern about hopper versus cutter head dredge. He said it's gonna be a hopper dredge to avoid the rock issue. And said that the hopper dredges already have a screen on them to keep turtles from getting in the dredge, so that would help some. But they will be monitoring the situation closely on the beach and be able to screen the dredge material if needed. That shows up to be a problem.
And
But
They'll
to-
hopefully
they
avoid
also-
the rock problem altogether.
Well, the rock problem comes in twofold, okay?
Mhm.
We know that there are hardened surfaces out in the ocean, okay? That there is a karst,
Yeah.
thing at this part of the thing, but and the Corps of Engineers confirmed this, is that the natural sand by volume has about 4% rocks. The beach in phase 5, okay, the normal beach has that rock concentration, so it's not rock free, okay? Now, if you'd still deposit sand and it has that right rock volume, you're still subject to the concerns of CAMA and everybody else about rocks. So it would seem to me that rock mitigation, okay, in terms of putting the thing out to bid, is an
Should be in as
important
a contingent,
criteria.
it should be in as a
Right.
contingency item that.
And he did also say that they have a geologist that is now working with them, that was with CPE at that time, who knows places. Am I correct when I said that?
There was a bit of disagreement when the phase 5 project was done, with the geologist not recommending the area that was actually chosen for our project. And so Fran feels right now with, heeding the advice of the geologist, we will be in a much better area of the borrow.
The only thing I'll say, Surf City even said, Mayor Medlin said at the Fort-Town meeting, that they've even run into some rock issues with their project, even, and And he said much smaller rocks than we had, but they still had to go through mitigation down there as well.
Well, let's shut them down.
But that wasn't ocean dredge stuff.
No, that was trucked in.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you might as well, I agree with you, you might as well have something in there to
Something
cover
in place.
a rock
Yeah.
lost.
It'll be in the bid package.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be in the big
It's already
thing.
said that.
Okay.
But the other important consideration is, you know, he doesn't have a proposed timing in here that I can see. So what is the timing of this activity? And as far as his professional fees, you know, they're small compared to, you know, I mean, this is a multi-million-dollar project. $100,000 is pennies. All right. So
So the next steps on this one?
So, listen, I would suggest that, before we take,
Okay.
I mean, you're not asking for a motion, or what, that basically, you
I-
refine this and come back, in 3 weeks,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
We can do it.
What refinement do we need?
I think, well, we talked about the rock, adding
we
something,
already said
you
that.
said
Ocean
that-
dredge,
Yeah.
rock mitigation, hopper dredge only, timing.
So
You know
you-
the timing is
What?
2/19, 2/20, 2/21. That's the timing.
Right, but it needs to be in the document,
Problem
because
is,
the
this is
document
gonna
is.
go out for
important.
bid, and all the good stuff that we've talked about in these working groups needs to be a matter of record
In the-
and entered into the bid proposal, so that the bid proposal matches what our expectations are at this table. And if we can get it turned around in 3 weeks and address it at the next monthly board meeting, is that enough time?
I would suspect so, but I'll
Why don't you
talk to
call him
and
tomorrow, and I
find
mean,
out.
if it isn't, and we have to turn around and have a special meeting or something,
Yeah.
then we'll do it, but I completely agree, and especially having watched phase 5 and watched the rocks, and taking the hits for it, there's some things that need to be codified in the written proposal that have been discussed.
So it sounds like you guys have already had the conversations, it's really just getting it into the
Getting it
appropriate
in place.
language into the document, and
Exactly.
maybe pass through you as your committee first before it comes to you.
Exactly.
For example, I mean, he talks about, they're gonna reanalyze the borrow areas, okay? I mean, on what schedule is he reanalyzing the borrow areas? I mean, is it something he's gonna do this summer, or next, over the winter?
The geologist is gonna look at the data again. They are not collecting any new data. The sample collection based on what's already in the data set.
What might be good is if you could send an email to me or to Mike or to Brian or all of us with your specific concerns, and then we'll make
Yeah.
sure those get addressed
Mhm.
to Fran, and that those get put into the modified bid packet. I've written down some of this stuff, okay?
Is he considering, Mike, the federal borrow areas as a source?
Apparently, we have been assigned that borrow area that was used for phase 5. I don't understand if it's a federal borrow area or if it's independently federal. There are like 12 or 16 federal borrow areas off our coast. But it's one that was used for phase 5.
Is he working with Chris Gibson on this? Is he our geologist or
No,
lead
Chris
geologist?
did some of the data collection. Chris did the original data collection,
Okay.
once we were trying to come up with the damages for FEMA. So Chris has worked with him, but not with this part.
Well, I know at the one meeting that we had down in Surf City, he indicated that we could go into Surf City for extra sand.
That's for the federal
Yes, sir.
project.
Well, look, it's my understanding also in terms of looking at data, that in fact, the methodology used for fiber cores, okay, is really not sensitive enough to detect the rock problem that we had in phase 5. So he's looking at vibrocore data that's been collected before. I'm not so sure that he's gonna learn anything. That's my concern. So when they talk about design review or borrow area review and design, I'd like to understand, exactly what that is, if that's supposed to provide us some additional protection. my concern.
And
We don't want the surprise that we had before.
if this ends up being on the agenda for the August meeting, do we want to see if he can't be here in person, he'll be
I'll
here?
make sure, yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say at least on a conference call or
Yeah.
something with us if he can't be in person, so we can ask questions.
Anyway, I read the thing, those are my concerns,
Okay.
and I think we need a little bit more detail. Okay, and then we can move ahead in 3 weeks, okay? Especially if the project is now, if he's forecasting that the project will be planned in the fall of 2020. All right, where are we? Okay, that includes the ATM proposal. Okay, we're back in, open forum. Again, anybody in the audience who wants to come forth and make a comment or recommendation to the board, ask a question. If not, we'll go on to the attorney's report.
Closed session, we have a few things to talk about.
Okay. The third-party agreement, let me ask you, do we have it? That's not an item for with the Corps of
No, yeah,
Engineers?
Brian and I spoke with, Vicky Sugg and, attorney one of the attorneys for the Corps, and they wanted us to send a document that we have sent to them, so, I anticipate it'll probably be consummated next week.
Promise?
To the extent I can influence it, yes.
I mean, you know, the people that we contracted kept saying, you know, I almost got the impression, as long as we don't have the 30-part agreement, it's a day-for-day slip, okay, on their thing, so.
Actually, what they said is they've been, well,
Yeah.
that part we could talk about in closed session.
All
but,
right.
They actually, and Brian, correct me if you heard it differently, but what they told us now they wanted was completely different than what we talked about in the very first conference.
Well,
So,
that was-
But
yeah.
we had the verbatim language that was acceptable, and they have it now.
Okay, listen, that's gonna be an agenda item for August 1st with an ultimatum. Anything
Corps?
else?
Easements on the, dredge project, we have, 99% of them. I'm waiting on, one property owner owns 4 parcels, and I was assured by their representative that I'd have that. I don't have it yet. We'll discuss some other things about that in closed session, is why I wanted that item added afterwards.
Okay. That concludes your
Thank you
report?
for your help getting some of those as well.
Mayor's report, just a couple things. I'm enthusiastic about the things that are moving ahead, again, on either improving the beach or at least restoring it, after the storm, and you've heard a lot of that today. The third-party agreement question that I asked has to do with the terminal groin, which was not a part of the town manager's report. In the future, I expect him to include that item in his report.
I'll take that one. Thus far, I'll take the responsibility for that one.
Well, that, for the third-party agreement, but there's other aspects.
Yes, sir.
of it.
I was just saying, just so everyone's clear, that Brian had done all he can do, and then it was a matter of getting the legal requirements from the Corps, which we have now
Right.
done.
Okay, yesterday, town manager Chadwick, Aldermen, Leonard and myself were in Raleigh talking to our representative Phil Shepherd regarding the road conditions on State Road 1568 and the need probably for paved shoulders to accommodate not only vehicular traffic, but people who use that road as pedestrians, bicyclists, and for running, okay? And then the road is just not wide enough, especially during the vacations, this time of year to accommodate all of them. And he agreed that he would go back to some of his, he's the chairman of the Transportation Committee in the House of Representatives for the North Carolina legislature, that he would, and he has a study group, and that he will convene them and then make contacts with the Department of Transportation to see what they could do. Nothing that could be done this summer, but hopefully in the fall we might get some action from him. We're in the height of the tourist season. It's July, some of you are all here. I encourage you to enjoy, in fact, the summer weather, the summer climate. And in the fall, then we'll go back to doing the improvements necessary for this town. Continue those. That concludes my report, and thank you again for coming to the meeting. And then I'll start with Alderman Leonard and the attorney's or Alderman's report.
Appreciate everybody coming out. Hey, Jeremy Grove, thank you for everything. I really appreciate your efforts over the past year. It's been a pleasure to serve with you, sir. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Tom. Same here.
Okay, so let's go, Mike. Go around.
I would like to just reiterate how excited we are about the possibility of a new start for the Surf City North Topsail Beach federal project. The $700 million that Congress appropriated the Army Corps for disaster relief for Hurricane Florence and Michael has given a whole new meaning to our probability of getting a federal project. And what you might not understand is when the feds build a project, they build a dune that is, I think, 15 feet high, 25 feet wide, and 50 feet at the base. It's a monster dune. Plus, they build 7-foot high beach in front of that out to the high water mark. So it is a very unique opportunity that we have, and let's hope the Army Corps, and we're working hard to try to lobby them that we will be on the top of their list to get this new start money. So it's just something to keep our fingers crossed, because this is as close as we've ever gotten. And this is a $120 million project, by the way. And it's renourished every 6 years. And with 100% federal financing, the town will not have to make a local cost share until the renourishment cycle starts. So it's just a win-win situation for the island, Surf City, North Topsail Beach. That concludes my report.
Everybody keep their fingers crossed. Richard.
Okay, I just kind of add on to what Mike is saying, has said about Phase 5 project, but it would appear that we've got a lot of other additional positive movements, as was just discussed, encompassing the entire beach. And we're certainly getting a lot of assistance from the state and our federal representatives, so things are looking very positive, I think, at this point in time. No thanks to, with all thanks to Brian and the staff and what you're pursuing, Brian. Thank you. And thank you all for coming.
Joanne?
Last but not least.
Yep, I also wanted to just say I was thrilled about how much progress we're making on the projects that we have planned and trying to get underway as far as the beach restoration and nourishment. I wanted everybody to have a little bit of an idea of what goes on behind the scenes too. So on top of what you all see Brian doing and reporting out, we also spend a lot of time working with the other towns on the beach, making sure we're all in sync, making sure we know what everybody's doing. I think much better than we have in any other past time. So if there's any event or anything that happens, we're all in sync and communicating and working as an island, not 3 separate towns, and I appreciate that. I think the last 4-town meeting we had went really well. And you can just see there's a lot of camaraderie there. I'm also thrilled to see that we're about halfway through the summer. It's been kind of quiet, I think, and uneventful. I don't know if Chief would agree with me on there, but I think it's probably because we don't have all our properties back yet, but I definitely think it's been a little bit quieter than past years. And thank you.
Okay, that concludes the Alderman's report.
Jeremy,
Jeremy, do you have a report?
Yeah, I would just like to say it's been my pleasure to serve the town. I really appreciated the last year. We have a wonderful staff, so for all the staff that might be in the room, thank you very much for all that you do. We have a great board that has worked well together. truly has the best interest of the town at heart. And I really enjoy working with everybody. And I look forward to coming back to visit and having a nice new beach in front of my condo.
All right, thank you,
We'll work on
Jeremy.
it, Jeremy.
Yeah, we'll work on
Come
it.
back to
Okay. All right, that concludes the Alderman's report. So I need a motion to go into closed session for the variety of things that are written on your,
I make a
agenda.
As stated in
motion.
the agenda packet.
As stated in
Yep,
agenda.
I make a motion to go into closed session.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, you're.
Bye.
Are you coming back into open session?